morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra on News Central. Now, there's a kind of film we've all seen before. The ghost story where the spirit walks the hall, sits at the dinner table, answers the phone, and everyone around it swears right up until the final reel that nothing is there. They can't see anything. That's not horror for effect. That's horror because the household keeps functioning around something it refuses to name. Nigeria. This week, Lady Koi Koi has visited us, or Madam Koi Koi as we will say. We're being told officially that the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council does not exist. It's a phantom, a fiction, a spoken word. And yet, this fiction has a director general, and his name is Prince Adeyemi Matthew, and is now facing an 8-count charge and is still insisting his appointment was genuine. Now, this fiction reportedly operated from office space inside the Federal Secretariat. It met foreign ambassadors. It allegedly opened accounts with the Central Bank of Nigeria, a domiciliary account, a pound sterling account, and a treasury single account. It allegedly had a budget line worth billions sitting inside the 2026 Appropriation Act. And it was reportedly approved for over 300 staff. And at the center of the paperwork trail sits the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, the man who publicly declared that this agency is fake, and the man Adeyemi says signed off on his appointment in the first place. Those are two sharply conflicting accounts, and the court process will have to determine what happened. Then there's the man in between them, Babatunde Tanimola, the middleman Adeyemi says brokered the connection to the Chief of Staff, the one who allegedly witnessed the arrangement. Tanimola died in a fire at a hotel in Otako, Abuja on the 22nd of October, a day after the Chief of Staff's petition reached the police. I'm not going to tell you what that means. I don't know what that means. But I know that in a story already full of unanswered questions, a dead witness is not a detail you skip past on your way to the next headline. No. This is the part of the film where the audience stops being scared of the ghost and start being scared of the house. So let's ask the plain questions, the same ones many Nigerians have been asking this week, regardless of political affiliations. How does a budget line for a non-existent agency clear the layers of review a national budget is supposed to pass through and come out the other side untouched, unscathed? How does the Central Bank of Nigeria, an institution that makes ordinary businesses jump through hoops for one account, allegedly it opened several for an entity whose legal status is now at the center of a criminal case? Who approved the office space at the Federal Secretariat? Who signed off on those staff numbers? How did foreign diplomats and government officials come to engage with an organization the presidency says did not exist? Who is going to explain how a man died the day after the story started crawling? Those are questions every Nigerian is entitled to ask, regardless of where they stand politically, because public confidence depends on knowing that institutions can distinguish what is legitimate from what is not. And here's what I'll leave you with. It is not enough to arrest one man and call the file closed if an agency with no legal existence could allegedly move through budget approval, secure a federal address, a website, and bank with the apex institution of this country. Then the real scandal was never just the ghost. It was every door somebody left open for it to walk through. And until we get an independent accounting of who opened those doors and who benefited from keeping them open, this isn't a fraud story. This is not a movie. It is a story about how easily the state itself can be walked into or can be sold overnight. And that's the conversation Nigerians need to have and follow up with. Not simply whether the PFIPC was real, but who made something the presidency says did not legally exist function as though it did. Good morning again and welcome to a Nollywood movie. My name is Queen Celestine and this is Breakfast Extra. And I'm with Mazino Appeal. Mazino, what role will you be playing in this movie?
I do not. I would be the news anchor who'll be telling this story because it is sweet. First of all, I thought we're done with the whole Janasi and everything from last week.
Oh, no.
Bring that back again this week.
Another script came up. I just had to.
True to life, I mean, we shouldn't have any lacks when it comes to our Nollywood storyline because these are just fantastic stuff.
This is a blockbuster.
You can't write it. It's great. Nice. I love it.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm coming over so we start our Saturday.
We can't wait.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, once again, good morning and welcome. This is Breakfast Extra, and what a show we've got packed for you now. To begin with, we will be beginning with questions that cut across many of the stories we'll be discussing. What does fairness look like in a society facing growing economic and social pressure? It's one. And for many Lagos residents, the search for housing has become increasingly difficult, but for some women, the challenge goes beyond raising rents and also the limited availability. Concerns are being raised about discrimination, unequal treatment, and the experience female tenants face in a housing market where the balance of power often favors landlords. We'll bring you a special report examining these realities and asking whether enough is being done to protect tenants and promote fairness. And from housing, we move to another challenge many residents are confronting this rainy season with. Across Lagos, floodwaters have once again become part of daily life. Roads are submerged, drainage systems are under pressure, and economic activities, well, they're being disrupted. So, we'll also turn our attention to the state of journalism in Nigeria at a time when access to credible information has never been more important. Many experienced journalists are leaving traditional newsrooms. While remuneration remains part of the conversation, industry experts argue that the challenges run much deeper. We ask what this trend means for investigative reporting, media credibility, and the future of quality journalism in the country. And accountability and public trust is also on our topic today, our table today. It will also be an agenda as we examine the controversy surrounding a high-profile agency scandal that has sparked questions about oversight, transparency, and governance. And I think Queen just spoke about that one in her monologue. And as political parties continue positioning themselves ahead of next election cycle, we'll discuss the recent court ruling affirming the leadership of the African Democratic Congress. What does the judgment mean for the party? Well, Nigerians are looking for credible political alternatives in this year, or rather the year ahead. And later, of course, we've got more coming your way. But let's not spill all the beans. Let's let you find out. Welcome to Breakfast Extra here for a Saturday morning. Queen Celestine, once again, fantastic monologue there. Absolutely enjoyed it. We'll be talking about
You were laughing.
I was laughing. The first of you caught me when you said somebody died. I'm like, hang on a second, that's a plot twist.
Yes.
It was a very interesting
it felt like everything kind of
layer it fell into.
Yeah, from October, it was like, 5 days later, 5 days later, 5 days later. Next time, this one died. And then, like,
interesting. Absolutely interesting. Well, we'll be having very interesting guests on now on today, so I'm looking forward to your banter with them because you're the expert now. Nollywood and everything that's political life in Nigeria. Tell you what, let's do a break. When we get back, we might be doing the papers are going straight into a big story, or rather big report. Do stay with us. Welcome once again. This is Breakfast Extra.
All right, let's dive right into it. Our first big report. A home is supposed to be a place of safety, a place where people can rest, rebuild, and plan for tomorrow. But for many women in Lagos, securing and keeping a roof over their heads has become a struggle, even with the way I'm reading right now, it's a struggle. shaped not just by rising rent, but by unequal treatment, intimidation, and vulnerability. As housing costs continue to climb and decent accommodation becomes harder to find, questions are being raised about the experiences of female tenants and whether enough protections exist to ensure fairness in the rental market. Now, across Lagos, our correspondents set out to examine the realities women face in their search for accommodation, from allegations of discrimination and exploitative demands to concerns over rent hikes and housing shortages. This investigation explores a challenge affecting thousands of residents across the state. Now, here is our special report by Ibukun Oluwadaramola. Let's have a look.
Finding a place to live is often considered a basic necessity. Yet, for many women, the search for accommodation can come with additional hurdles. Across different parts of Nigeria, women recount experiences of being questioned about their marital status, asked to provide male guarantors, or denied housing opportunities because they are single, divorced, or widowed. Some say that they have had to involve male relatives, friends, or partners during this house hunting simply to improve their chances of securing accommodation.
When I was moving from my former compound to a new compound, so the agent said I have to get my husband. The phone number, the picture, the ID card has to be my numbers, my husband's details. That they don't give house to a single lady and they don't give house to a woman. So it has to be couples.
At first when I came, the landlord refused. He said you have to be married. So I had to ask a male friend to follow me. So when we got there, we actually acted like couples.
Yeah, I think it's discrimination because everyone needs to be given equal rights. If a man is house hunting, he's given an apartment. If a woman is house hunting as well, she should be given an apartment as well.
I feel like every woman has the right to own her own place or rent her own place. So I do not see it as the right thing to do for any landlord, be it a single woman, be it a divorcee, be it a woman that's, I don't know, but the woman does not deserve that.
While some advocates argue that such practices can place women at a disadvantage, others maintain that the landlords often make decisions based on personal experiences and security concerns.
We have the ground norm, which is a constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Does the constitution provide for a law or makes provision for a law against discrimination? Of course, yes. Chapter 4, Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution as amended says that nobody should be discriminated against on the basis of religion, political opinion. Sex is also inclusive. But I think we also need to balance the opinion with the rights of a landlord also to let out your property to whoever you choose. So that is a challenge you have in here. I think one of the things that Nigerians can do to protect women in terms of the specific International Convention of CEDAW is to domesticate CEDAW in line with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution.
As conversations around equality continue to evolve, millions are calling for a housing market where access to shelter is determined by a person's ability to meet tenancy requirements rather than their gender. In Lagos for News Central, Ibukun Oluwadaramola.
Now, while we had that report here in Lagos, in Kogi, we had our News Central correspondent, Monarch Balagbogbo, who also took a look at the new tenancy law in Kogi State. Well, we're going to have those conversations together, so let's take his report as well.
For many residents in Kogi State, finding affordable accommodation has become increasingly difficult as rental costs continue to rise. To address the challenge, the Kogi State House of Assembly is considering a tenancy bill designed to regulate landlord-tenant relationships, reduce disputes, and promote fairness in the housing sector.
We have had several complaints from our constituents over the last 2-3 years of how skyrocketed the prices of houses have gone in Kogi State, and we feel it is necessary as a representative of the people to ensure that the right thing is done, to ensure that our people are not shortchanged in any way, to ensure that we have a balanced relationship between the agents and the landlords.
The state government says the proposed law is timely as growing demand for housing continues to push rents beyond the reach of many residents.
we looked at the bill critically, and it's good, and it's timely, and we all need it, because all of us here, one way or the other, the impact is on each and every one of us here. But not having the Minister of Housing, mentioned in the matter that concerns housing in the state, I think it is an oversight.
Stakeholders welcomed the bill but urged lawmakers to review some provisions to ensure they align with existing constitutional and legal frameworks.
The relationship which the bill intends to regulate is that of landlord, tenants, and agents, which is usually based on social interaction and protection of individual rights. We hope that our submission will give it due consideration.
In putting the aspect of the keenness to determine rent, it is not statutory.
With memoranda now submitted, the House Committee is expected to review stakeholders' recommendations before presenting its report to the Assembly. In Kogi, for News Central, Morno Balagogo.
And now, you're welcome back. Let's take our conversation to another level. First off, let's introduce our guest, Ibukun Oluwadaramola. She is News Central correspondent who put together the very first report. You're welcome, Ibukun.
Thank you so much.
And of course, joining us via Zoom, we also have John Eniwaye. He is the chairman, Estate Surveyors and Valuers, Kogi State. John, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. So, John,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Great. Awesome. We're going to have this conversation all together now, and with our correspondents here in the studio. So, ladies, please, I'll let you guys go.
Thank you, Mazino, for being nice. Well,
I'm always nice.
Mental month is over.
It's over.
So, if you could tell me, what made you do this report? We know that everybody has been shouting rent is high, cost of living is outrageous, but what, drove you to do this?
Specifically for women, that angle.
Yes, okay. So the thing that drove me to have this report is the fact that this is an open secret. This is something that is experienced by one too many people, but one too many women, because the chances are higher for women to be denied accommodation as opposed to the men, just because. And I know a lot of people who have experienced this, and I felt like it is something that happens too often. It is discrimination in public spaces that just didn't sit right with me, because whether or not we acknowledge it, it is discrimination. And I know one too many people who have gone through that. I have friends whose mothers were refused because they were widows, or because they were divorced. And then, of course, we have the situation where majorly single women are not allowed to get accommodation just because they're single, not because they are unable to pay for the rent, not because they're unable to stick to whatever rules are provided, but just because they're single women. And it just did not sit right with me at all.
Right. So would you say this is happening in a particular area in Lagos, or it's happening everywhere in general?
Everywhere. It's not even just Lagos State, it is the country at large. I have spoken to people within Lagos and outside of Lagos, and this is a thing. But then I decided to focus mainly on Lagos because that is where I live, and because the people that I knew that had experienced these things are in Lagos State. So that was what drove me to cover it, to speak up for them and for those many, many people who do not have a voice. So that was my inspiration to do this.
Interesting. John, I don't know what the situation is like in Kogi State. Do you experience these kinds of things in Kogi State while the Kogi State government is trying to change the tenancy laws? Is this also something that tenants, especially female tenants, have to contend with when they're looking for homes?
Well, thank you very much. I think the current review of the 2007 rent control on residential premises, recovering of residential premises, I think it's timely, because it will actually bring about transparency. It will bring sanity in real estate industry. It will also promote investment avenue, in the sense that the existing law that guides rent is actually long overdue, considering what is happening around the nation. I think in Lagos 2011 and 2025. So I think it's actually the right time. But as touching the issue raised here, it's not common here in Kogi State in particular. Reason being that from your prospective tenant form, you screen and you ask for guarantor and a few other information. We don't actually that discriminate, except where such tenant has been actually blacklisted. They're blacklisted.
Right. I wanted to come back and ask Dara, Ibukun, what did you discover the landlords were scared of? What exactly were they? What I don't know if it's a challenge.
What was the issue?
What's the cocoa at this point?
So from the different people that I had spoken to, it was a thing of, a safety concern, a security concern, and some assertions that, some women may bring in different men, and the perception that bringing in different men will make those men more threatening as opposed to men having different women come in to see them, things along the lines of that, and some assertions of promiscuity as well, which I just felt like some of them were baseless. I hadn't heard anything that was conjuring enough to, allow that. So that's what they were really focused on as well. And then they didn't want single mothers. They would say that they would prefer a family, a man, wife, and kids, or a man and wife without the kids. And that's what
So the women that you spoke to, were they able to say, of course, if one landlord refused, they finally found house somewhere. So how did they navigate through that? Was it traumatizing for them? How did they have to explain to the other landlord that I'm not a threat? Or if men have too many women, or women have, I don't even know how people think about these things.
It's just baseless. It's just one of those things. So for the women I had spoken to, as well as other people that I do know, there's one thing that they all do. They take a male companion. They take a boyfriend. They take a friend. They take an uncle. They take a brother, just so they can have the person be the one in charge of the house hunting, to appear as the person who is looking for an apartment or looking for a house, because they know that they'll be more likely taken seriously if there is a man in the forefront of that.
Right.
And it's not right. This is 2026. If they can afford the rent, if they are upstanding citizens and, they can pay for it, then why not let them be at the forefront of their own house hunting?
Right.
I've had family members who had to do that as well. I've had to follow as a third person. There are people who had to pretend to be married or pretend to be a couple, maybe boyfriend and girlfriend. And some of the people that I spoke to on the streets explained that there was a particular woman who is married, but her husband is not in the country. So she had to call him at the end of the day after the first landlord and the second landlord and this agent and that. She got really frustrated and she had to call her husband, and they told him that he had to be the one to fill out all the details. Not her, who will be living there, him. And this happens to one too many women.
Right.
Right.
Go ahead, please.
John, I think my question now would be, hearing this conversation, like you said, it doesn't happen a lot in Kogi State. What would you say will be the reason for these landlords to discriminate single women, women who are divorced, or, who are widowed? This is the same Nigeria where we're talking about, giving women chances. So what do you think will be the issue, since you're into real estate? What do you think will be the issue that landlords will say, we don't want single women? Is it promiscuity, or they don't think they can afford it?
Well, it could be some factors. Precedents most times also count. And where landlord manages his property by himself, they always have this personal one-on-one interface with a prospective tenant, and they share their view and probably tell them this is what is about. Professionally, I don't think any professional, most especially estate surveyor and valuer, would deny prospective tenants of gaining access into apartment that she has inspected and felt that this is comfortable for her, she can afford it. As long as you can afford it and you have what you need, what is required of you, most especially your ability to renew after the first rent. So definitely, and you can provide your guarantor, your next of kin. But the fact that you are a divorcee or single mother do not even warrant denial of access to a rented apartment. But I think due diligence is what is expected in a situation like this.
Okay. John, let's turn to the Kogi instance now, the new tenancy law. I want to know what tenants are going to be expecting from this new law. What should they be excited about? Does it really change anything? Because we've had these cases in Lagos here. nothing really changes at the end of the day. What should we be excited about the new proposed tenancy law in Kogi State?
Thank you very much. This law looks into several aspects of tenancy, starting from who regulates what, that is the board. 2, it also looked at the landlord aspect, the tenant aspect, the professional and agents aspect. When I say professional, I mean the trained real estate agent and the untrained, or let me say unskilled one who happen to just find it as a means of survival. And that's why we call it an all-commerce affairs. So when it comes to the angle of the landlord, yes, landlord will be more secured, but it will reduce their unnecessary demand for more than a year rent.
Okay.
Meaning no more lease for residential, only a letting of a year.
Okay.
Which means you can't ask or demand for more than a year rent from prospective tenants.
So previously, previously were tenants being asked to pay more than just a year's worth?
Very well.
Okay, and do you think with this new...
A lot of prospective tenants who come to our firm do complain of this.
So do you think that with this new tenancy law that it will be obeyed immediately? Because we had that instance here in Lagos, and it really... I don't know. Queen, is it being obeyed in Lagos? Not really, not much. So I'm wondering what it's like in Kogi State. Do you think that it will be enforced immediately?
I think you are talking in the aspect of enforcement.
Yes.
If the board that is established will be established after the enactment of this law will be effective, definitely it will be enforced. So it all depends on the machinery put in place to actually monitor this process. And if they can succeed in the first year, definitely it will work for us as a state.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you think that somewhere in there should have been a law that prevents landlords from discriminating against women?
Not at all.
Okay. Great. Well, let's hope that we can put something like so for Lagos, because and I wonder whether it will be enforced. But I want to say thank you very much, John, for joining us.
Thank
you. Ibukun Oluwa, first time I mentioned her name on the news, she searched me down that night, came to me and said, my name is Ibukun Oluwa, not Ibukun Oluwa. So Ibukun Oluwa, thank you very much. Thank you very much, John, for also joining us.
Thank you so much.
Do stay tuned. We've got more conversation coming your way. That was just the first. This is Breakfast Extra.
And now for our favorite conversation for the past few weeks. The rain have returned to Lagos with familiar consequences. Flooded roads, overflowing drains, damaged property, and disrupted economic activity. But beyond the inconvenience lies a more pressing concern: public health. Health experts warn that stagnant water, poor sanitation, and increased exposure to contaminated environments create ideal conditions for the spread of diseases. From malaria and cholera to skin infections and respiratory illnesses, the rainy season often places additional pressure on already strained healthcare systems.
So the challenge, therefore, goes beyond managing floodwaters. It's about protecting lives. It is about understanding how environmental conditions translate into health risks and what communities can do to reduce those risks. To help us make sense of this, we're going to be talking to a very special guest here. Well, let's learn about the flooding, sanitation, and also public health. We will be joined by Dr. Ejim Clement. He's a medical doctor and also public health advocate. But before we speak to Dr. Ejim, let's take this package by News Central correspondent Israel Eferoba.
Speaking about the rains that fell a few hours ago here in Lagos, this is Ajiron Agungi Road here in the city, and as you can see, the water is rising, but according to those who are here, they say that the water has even receded for a bit. Yesterday, we were with the Commissioner of Water Resources and Environment, Mr. Tukumba Wahab, and he did say that they will be working on the infractions that were noticed around this adjoining area that is leading to the flooding that we are seeing here today. According to him, a land-owning family has committed some infractions along, the drainage channels over there, and which is now resulting to this water that you see, this storm water that you see here today. But let's try and speak to some residents here today and find out from them how much they have suffered and what this means for what they are going through on a daily basis. What exactly is happening here? This whole place is flooded.
Well, the more reason that we have a flood here is that, first, number one, there's no gutter both left and right, you can see. Then there's one canal before Ajidu. That canal is already blocked. You need to pack the sand. Then the normal place where they channel the water to is already blocked also. Then there's a particular building, both left and right. They have to make use of that side, so there's no how the flood can move.
Is this water as a result of the blocked canal? Or is it as a result of some persons building and blocking the pathway for the water to move? Which one is it?
The canal, number one. Then the building, they have to, because there's the under of the building is already blocked. Because they are piling the building. So the under, where the water is supposed to channel is already blocked also. But once they through the canal, probably the flood can be resolved. But for now, they have to see the canal first, pile the sand. So maybe if no move, so definitely you have to demolish the building.
How long has this been going on here?
For like this now, it's more than 10 years old. This is how you normally face it.
Thank you for talking to us. Okay, so there is also another resident here who was also been witnessing this storm water, this flooding here on the Ajiro Agungi Road. So just come to us. What has been your experience, with this storm water every rainy season? Look at the camera.
This water.
Just come close.
This water is too much. I've woke up since 2 a.m. today. I can't go to work. Look at everywhere is flooded. The gutter is down. Please, we need to do something about it. I don't have where to sleep. Look at where I stayed this morning. I don't have where to sleep. Please, you guys, the president should do something for us, please.
What do you think is the reason for this water here?
We need them to do the gutter for us, so that the gutter should be high, so that the water can flow. The water can flow, because now you can see the gutter. You can't see the gutter. So most of everybody, they are just falling into the gutter because the water is, look at the gutter, everything there. You cannot even see the gutter itself. So please, they should do something about it, please. If you go inside my room, there is water. There's nowhere I will put my leg. Everywhere is flooded.
Okay, so this is the situation. I mean, we will have someone who is being helped, a man carrying a woman on behind him, to wade through the water, as even the bike men, they cannot really wade through the water as well, because it will, ensure that their machines go bad. But this is the situation here right now on the Ajiron Agungi Road, where flood waters has completely taking over this axis as a result of a blocked drainage over there, infractions here and there as confirmed to us by the Commissioner of Environment and Water Resources, and also the lack of drainage channels on this particular road. What we're hoping that those in high authorities will take note of this particular road and ensure that this storm water does not get even higher than this, and there's a permanent solution to all of this. It is now back to you in the studios.
That report brought to us over the week by News Central correspondent Ifirubo Israel. Thank you very much. Now, like I said from before, we do have with us Dr. Ejim Clement, medical doctor and public health advocate. Doctor, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir. Doctor, as the rains persist, as the floods continue to happen inside of Lagos, what risks do we face as Lagosians?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. The risks are enormous, I must say. As a public health advocate, I would say that the risks are enormous Because when there are stagnant water everywhere, there's increased risk of disease transmission. Diseases that are already overburdening the health sector in Nigeria, ranging from malaria to skin infection to bacterial infection, and even some diseases that are coming as a result of this stagnant water, what we call the toxic wastewater. Because as a result of this, you see that the content of this water is not just the normal rainfall, right? The content of this water is sewage waste from houses, from homes that are far away from your home, refuse, and all sorts of things are in this water. And people are marked into this water. Some are even at the risk of drinking this water. So when you are exposed to this kind of water, you see that the effect is enormous. This also provides an avenue for vectors to thrive. It provides an avenue for disease transmission. If there's stagnant water, we know when we were growing up in the kindergarten and in primary school, we were taught that we shouldn't allow stagnant water around our homes, right? The reason is simple. That provides a very good breeding ground for mosquitoes. And mosquito is the culprit in malaria causation. So these and many more are some of the problems that are accompanied with this kind of incident that when it happens. And that is why it's important we are aware of our environment, right? This is something that we have to take up by ourselves. The government cannot come and do some of these things for us, right? Because this is as a result of human activity, as a result of either human activity or inactivity, or a combination of both, right? These canals or the channels are blocked because someone somewhere has built a house on these waterways, or someone somewhere is training debts, right? As Lagosians, we need to begin to imbibe some of these environmental friendly cultures, right? Cultures that you don't dispose your bottled water, you don't dispose your can, your plastic can indiscriminately, right?
Now we'll save that for the environmentalists. We often have environmentalists come in and talk about the risks of these kinds of habits. But Queen, you had a question.
Yes. While Dr. Ejim was mentioning all these things, I think for me, the flood is already here. We have a lot of people having to go through this flood every day, pending when it goes away. There's a situation where, we saw a video where a guy, his house was flooded for 2 weeks. He went away and came back to clean it and still remain there. So what are the health challenges these particular people will face? Because they don't have anywhere to go. Because a lot of people just feel like, oh, it's mosquito. What other thing do you think can come out of this flooding? What outbreak should we be expecting if this continue and they continue to stay inside these flooded areas?
Okay, so there's what we call the waterborne diseases. And these are diseases that are transmitted via contaminated water, right? And one of the culprits in this is cholera, right? Cholera is one of the commonest thing that can come out of this. And it is because of contaminated water. You take this kind of water from this kind of environment. The water has a lot of dirt in it, right? Sewage waste, refuse waste, and all sorts. So cholera should be what people should look out for at this point in time. And some of the things you look out for when you begin to have symptoms of cholera, you begin to see fever, you have diarrhea, sometimes diarrhea that is uncontrollable. You keep stooling and stooling and stooling. So there are also other diseases like leptospirosis. This is also another form of outbreak that can come out of this. It is actually caused by a bacteria that is usually in the urine of rodents around the house. And because this flood has displaced the habitat of these rodents, right? You can see them in this water, defecating into this water. And then people are at risk of getting in touch or getting in contact with this water, especially children that are below 5 and even pregnant women, right? Because children they are very exploratory in nature, right? If you have children at home, as an adult, yes, you would know that, yes, this water is not good. So when you are trying to like avoid, getting in contact with this water, but children do not know that, right? They can touch anywhere, and then the next thing they introduce their hand, their body into their mouth, and that can increase their risk of coming down with this. So yes, cholera is another thing that we should look out for when we have this. So people should actually look out for themselves at this point in time, certain symptoms that you can identify that will say that, okay, there's something actually wrong with your system. Look out for fever. When you are stooling excessively, you should check that. And at this point in time, when you have any health complaint, however small it is, right, the best thing is for you to check into the hospital, for us to tell you that you are safe, you should go back home before you can do that. Don't just take anything for granted.
Okay. Dr. Ejim, precautions. You've already started by telling us what you think we should do, be observant, especially about our conditions. But what about immediately? What precautions can we take immediately with the floods as individuals? Do you suggest rain boots? Do you suggest a total keeping away from rainwater? What practical steps can we take to help ourselves individually?
Okay, so I'll start from individual health, right? You can start by putting on protective gears, like the rain boot you just said. Try as much as possible to minimize contact with this water, right? Because there are skin diseases as well that can come out of this. Fungal infection can come out of this. Bacterial infection can come out of this. So by the time you minimize contact with this water, you will be able to reduce the incidence of disease that can come out of this tremendously. So you can wear protective gears, you can wear raincoats, you can wear boots, and all of that. Then for homes that have kids, right, especially kids under the age of 5, you would have to look out for these kids, right? Make sure you change if for instance, your bedding system before now were to be probably just a little feet above the ground level, right? You can find a way to increase the length or rather the height of the bed so that even if the flood passes or if it comes again, the bed will be somewhere, because yes, you cannot at this point in time tell people to relocate because there's a crisis, right? That comes with flooding. So in the immediate, before the flooding regrets or before other intervention can come, as an individual in the house or as a homeowner, you can make some of these interventions. Find a way to increase the height of your bed. That will keep your children away from the water level. That will also help. Also, look out for these kids. The reason why I'm hammering on the kids and pregnant women is that they are the most vulnerable in this category of people that are affected by this. So, and when they come down with some of these illnesses, their outcome is usually very, very bad, right? So, look out for them, ensure that they minimize contact with this water as much as possible. Also, you have to change your source of drinking water. If before now you drink water from probably the well in the compound, that has to change. Because with this, you cannot guarantee that the initial source of water you were using is still safe for drinking. Well, it might come with some economic
Oh dear, I think we might have lost that connection with the doctor. Doctor, we hope you're still there, but I think we were rounding off in any case, and he has said quite very interesting things there that I think the people in Lekki, I mean, everybody should actually take seriously. I'm joking, I'm sorry.
You did not just say.
But then most of the recorded instances are actually from the Lekki area.
Yes, but it's not really Lekki, it's for the Ghana.
The mainland has cases of flash floods. They come and they go. Lekki remains.
We're not coming to First Tech.
No, I'm not asking you to stay where you are. Stay where you stay.
You know,
Doctor is back.
Are you back?
I think that Doctor, you're back. Thank you, but unfortunately, you're coming back because we're about to say our goodbyes. But I think we've heard plenty of what you said regarding the precautions that we could take as individuals to try and protect ourselves. I was just having a little joke here with Queen about people living in Lekki and how more prone to these cases or these issues than people on the mainland. Do you want to say something about that real quick?
Yes, I overheard that as well. But I want to say that it's not just those living in Lekki, right? I saw somewhere too on the mainland that the flood is everywhere.
Yes.
I know, it is. I do agree with you. But you know, we try to poke poke those guys in Lekki as much as we can, any chance we get.
Yes, so.
But thank you very much, Doctor, for having this conversation with us.
Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Grand.
Awesome. I like the fact that on Breakfast Extra, we always find something to just make us smile. Because
a silver lining, because
this movie we're acting and
this
living
is Lagos, so is this Nigeria?
This is Lagos. This is Nigeria. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we start another conversation. Don't go anywhere.
Yes. Morning once again, top of the hour. My name is Mazino Appeal, and let's do the headlines. Now, traders at Body Market in Molite area of Ibadan are assessing heavy losses after a fire destroyed several shops and goods worth millions of naira. The Oyo State Fire Service contained the blaze before it spread to other parts of the market. Authorities say the cause of the fire is yet to be determined, while investigations are underway. Fire officials have urged traders to observe basic fire safety measures, including proper use of electrical appliances and avoiding overloaded power outlets. No casualties had been confirmed as of the time of filing this report, while affected traders are appealing for government support to help recover from their losses.
We received the call. So as the director of operations, I mobilized my men and deployed them to the scene of incident. But once we learned that the fire has already well alighted, so I still mobilize more men. So in order to make sure that we extinguish the fire without spreading to unaffected properties here. And if you look at the situation now presently, you will see that we've already extinguished the fire. So we have been working here since that time, and working assiduously here, and people also in this surrounding, they can testify to it, the kind of the job that the fire service has done here. I cannot tell you exactly what caused the fire because the post-fire investigation is still going on. And what I learned from here is that from what they are selling here or what they are stored here, I learned that there are some substances that can absorb it by itself and set itself on fire. So I think that that is the cause of the root cause of the fire.
To security matters. Now, the Oyo State Police Command has arrested suspected members of rival cult groups during intelligence-led operations across the state, recovering firearms and other dangerous weapons. Now, police say the coordinated raids targeted locations linked to cult activities and were carried out without incident. Now, during the parade of suspects, one of those arrested admitted to being a factional leader of the Supreme Air Confraternity, while others acknowledged membership but denied involvement in violent crimes. The command says investigations are ongoing and the suspects will be charged to court after the process is concluded.
Who belongs to the dreaded Aye Confraternity, we're going to be having Aye Confraternity. We're going to be having their gathering at a particular locations within Ogbomoso. Which and quickly upon the receipt of the information, the Commissioner of Police, Oyo State Police Command, CP Abimbola Ayodeji Olugwenga, PSC MNIPS, directed the Commander FCRU to promptly mobilize his men to the said location. Having laid surveillance at the said area, we were able to move on their locations, and this alone...
Leave the guy. Still talking security, Senator Oji Uzo Kalu says the establishment of state police has become a necessity in Nigeria and is to effectively tackle its persistent security challenges. Now, speaking with journalists at the country home in Igbere, the senator said the National Assembly is prepared to make the necessary constitutional amendments to pave the way for the policy and prevent abuse. Senator Kadu also blamed security, or rather insecurity, for the nation's economic setbacks.
The state police is a must. And what we have just passed, that so many of you, the journalists, don't know, we have just passed the law to remove it from the Constitution, Nigerian Police Force, and replace it with Federal Police Services and State Police Services. So what we are suffering today is a microeconomy. The macroeconomy have done very, 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 very well because he is trying to fix back economy where you, me, And all of us will be proud to say we are Nigerians. Our foreign exchange dealings and industrial uses, manufacturing capacity, presumption of PMIs in the warehouses and everything were zero almost. What is sector that have not stimulated is the manufacturing sector. But the manufacturing sector, they have not been well stimulated because of the insecurity. Because if farmers don't go to farm, we will not be able to have raw materials to be able to.
And Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo has reaffirmed his administration's commitments to improving security and infrastructure at the Federal University Lokoja. Now, the governor gave the assurance while receiving the university's management led by Vice Chancellor Professor Gbenga Solomon on a courtesy visit to the government house in Lokoja. Ododo pledged to address key challenges facing the institution, including the construction of a perimeter fence, issuance of a university certificate of occupancy, improved campus security, road safety, and compensation for host communities. Now, earlier, the Vice Chancellor commended the state government's investment in education and infrastructure, while appealing for continued support to enhance the university's development and the welfare of its community.
First and foremost, on security, I will urge you to understudy COSTECH and KSUK. Just go there, look at what they have on ground in terms of digital surveillance. You appreciate it. And once you are convinced, please don't hesitate to come back to us so that we can sit down and look at it together. Then myself and yourself will go to Abuja to meet the Minister for Education. Kogi State has 4 universities. It's not 3.
What we have discussed with His Excellency is the issue of insecurity and the need for the state government to partner with Federal University Lokoja to secure the lives of our students and our staff, as well as our infrastructure.
And that's all inside the headlines this morning. Do stay with us. We'll bring you another one soon. And of course, more conversation inside of Breakfast Extra. Thank you for staying. We'll be back with more.
Journalism remains one of the pillars of any democratic society. It informs citizens, scrutinizes power, and helps shape public discourse. Yet behind the headlines and breaking news alert lies a growing concern. Who will continue doing this work when many of the industry's most talented professionals are leaving? Across Nigeria, media organizations are grappling with financial pressures, changing audience habits, and increasing competition from digital platforms. For many journalists, remunerations remain a challenge, but industry observers argue that the problem extends beyond salaries to issues of career development, newsroom culture, safety, and institutional sustainability.
At a time when misinformation spreads faster than facts and public trust is increasingly contested, the future of quality journalism matters to everyone. So joining us to examine the challenges and opportunities facing Nigerian journalism are Kemi Busari, journalist and editor at Dubawa, and Obiaya Francis, Dean of the School of Media and Communications, Pan-Atlantic University. Gentlemen, you are welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. Dr. Ikechukwu, let's start with you. Can you just, tell us, why do you think many Nigerians, many talented journalists are choosing to leave the traditional newsroom, or better still, leave Nigeria?
Leave Nigeria, that's the Japa syndrome, and I think everybody is going in that direction. However, for the journalists, I think that the times are pretty precarious on various fronts. On the one hand, you have the economic side of things, that largely journalists tend to be rather poorly paid. And on the other hand, looking particularly at the Nigerian situation, is the aspect of risk. Journalism is a high-risk profession. A research I did a little while back speaking to, and it was very clear that the threats were real. You have people who are threatened by authorities. You have people who are threatened. Those covering the terrorism and covering all the violent attacks are also threatened, even threatened by the ordinary citizens. When you go to cover situations, the possibility of being attacked is real. But I found, however, that the journalists, were truly passionate about what they do. And some people were willing to take the risk. Some people were willing to suffer the poor pay, really driven by passion. But I think passion can only get you so far. And many people after a while become disillusioned largely because in spite of all that is being put in spite of all the risks they face, there is a lack of appreciation that really in the wider society, in the government, in the private sector, many times we do not appreciate sufficiently what the journalists are doing. And really, I think for many people, it's really this aspect of the lack of appreciation that then moves them, in spite of their passion for the profession, to leave the field.
Mr. Busari, I wanted to know what you think. This press brain drain, at what cost is it coming to Nigeria, the Nigerian press situation here? Are we looking at a situation where the quality of information that is being delivered has been impacted?
Yeah, that's exactly the situation. So for a very long time now, I and some other observers in the media sector have been observing this. And one of the things we found is some of the big names you find in Nigerian journalism generally, and specifically Nigerian investigative journalism sector, have either left for adjacent sectors or leave the country entirely. And this is not even a case of financial remuneration alone. It's also a case of several other things, several other challenges that are attached to the job. For instance, professors talked about people leaving because of the high risk involved in journalism and the fact that the work that a lot of people do are not well commended. But there is also the part of the public trust. So the people you even write for don't care about what you do. So we have situations whereby people write investigative reports and the public come to say, well, who sent you to do that? Some of my colleagues experienced that and they were like, okay, why exactly are we doing this? Why exactly am I in the newsroom? And some of them resigned because of that. And the implication, as you know, is that when we don't have such critical journalists in the newsroom, a lot of the corruption that goes on in the society goes unchecked, and the journalism sector cannot function as a fourth estate.
I'm wondering whether this is as a result of the fact that, well, networks can't afford proper journalists, and if this is a problem, what other business models can these networks or platforms adopt? I don't know, Doctor, if you can help us here. You're the Dean of Communications. How can the business of the press still be profitable and yet be functional at the same time?
Well, largely the old models don't work anymore. The old models previously depended very much on advertising, but now there's so many platforms that advertisers seek where they will find people quicker and perhaps on a broader basis. So the old models don't work anymore. And there is a need now for the media houses to diversify. Many people have tried various things. I think really we're all still trying to find the new form that works. Because what some people have done is go more into other areas, diversify so they're not dependent solely on advertising. Others have tried to build a subscription model. However, the subscription model is perhaps rather tricky. Now that people have so many sources of news, they're not tied to anyone. And people these days tend to go more for the echo chambers. They want to listen to people who tell them what they want to hear. So really, the subscription model in many cases hasn't worked so well either. So it's difficult, I must say, to say at this time what exactly the right model will be. But I think it's a question of perhaps strengthening the individual journalists, because what happens today is that people tend to be loyal to individuals and not necessarily organizations. This is why there are some journalists that will do very well because they're promoting their own content, even though they are part of an organization. But people will say, yes, this fellow, I trust him, or I like this fellow, so I will follow him on the social media platforms. I will look out for his or her work. And I think that this is perhaps one way that media houses could capitalize on social media. So you have people who are covering different sectors, but yes, let people build trust in the individual, an individual who's connected to an organization. Of course, we then have to see how will that work, how will the economic aspect work. But that will be perhaps one way to do it. And you do see more of this happening, that individual journalists tend to be the ones that are perhaps a bit more prominent than actually the name of the organization itself.
Right. Dr. Gichuka, I think for me, the question now is, you're a dean now, I'm sure, so you've been in your school for a very long time.
Oh, he's been there for a very long time.
Would you say that there's been a decline in, the students who are coming into the Department of Media and Communications because of, realizing that being a journalist is a high-risk job? And for the ones who are now in media and communications, would you say that the schools are adapting and teaching them, the new models on how to communicate and do their journalism and, adapting to the new era while the newsroom is still trying to figure their way there?
Actually, you know that what we have is a mass communication program. And far from the numbers dropping, the numbers really, well, it alternates, but sometimes they go quite high. But what is happening is that people are coming into mass communication, not necessarily to do journalism. You do have some, yes, who want to go into journalism, but that is a number that is dropping a bit. So what people are doing now is they're taking the tools and going into other sectors. So people are saying now that there's so much more they can do, because really that is the beauty of a mass communication degree. It exposes you to so much. You can do so many things. And people are not, you could say, running away from the course. No. Rather, what you find is that there are fewer people who are inclined to go into journalism per se, even though they may be carrying out aspects of what that profession entails. So that really is the reality. And with respect to, are we teaching them to face the new realities? Yes, certainly. Actually, any institution that wants to remain relevant has to move with the times. And this is now to bringing all the whole reality of the new tools that are there, as well as teaching people critical thinking and also a business sense. I think in today's world, we really cannot be training anybody without also bringing in the aspect of a business sense, to understand the various platforms, to understand the various possibilities. I don't think we can depend, especially in this space, solely on what we expect an employer to give us. Sometimes we have to be the ones looking out. And I think that this is one of the things that is helping so many people in the field of journalism. They're discovering new ways of doing the same things that they've been doing so as to reach people and, as has been said, to build that trust.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Busari, I don't know if you'll agree, but the quality of information these days is beginning to go down. People no longer depend on traditional media houses for their news. They depend on VDM. They depend on, these individual handles, gossip, what did you call it? Gossip, blogs and all the rest. It's ridiculous. I don't know if they're looking for entertainment or real information, but then that's where you find, especially the young people, converging now. So at a time when miscommunication or misinformation flies very rampant, faster than proper news or proper journalism, what do you think, or what role do you think professional journalists, professional journalism play in this kind of a climb?
Oh, thank you very much for that question. So when I take journalism sessions, I like to say that there's a difference between journalism in public interest and journalism that is interesting to the public. So what we see today from the audience is they are much more interested in the latter. They want to know the gossips that is going on where they can't have access to and all. And you will quite agree with me that that cannot move our democracy forward. And that is the reason why we need to invest in what I call the real journalism, the journalism that helps you understand your country's economy, political, and every other situation so that you can take informed decision about your life, about the life of your children coming in the future as well. So what can we do to sustain this kind of journalism? I quite agree with the doctor earlier who said that there's really no tested and trusted model anywhere in the world, but we've seen that some other parts of the world has moved a bit beyond what we have currently in Nigeria. So in Nigeria today, we have the subscription model, which is being practiced by some news platforms. We still have the ad model and the grant model, which has been sustaining journalism for quite some time now. The likes of the MacArthur Foundation has pumped millions of dollars into Nigerian journalism for journalists to investigate a lot of issues that we have in the country. But there are quite a lot of other things that are being tested in other countries. For instance, the Public Trust Fund. So we need to all agree that public interest journalism cannot run or sustain on a market-driven commercial business. We can't run public interest journalism as a business. So what can we do extra? We can run a public trust fund. So for instance, I was in the Netherlands last year in one of the newsrooms that gets funding from the government. And this is not a case of a fund overriding your editorial independence. No. So the government budget fund annually that goes into the Ministry of Education, and then an independent body takes that fund and disburses it to different newsrooms. So with that, they are able to sustain investigative journalism. They are able to fund journalism startups and all. And we also see that in other parts of the world. For instance, the New York State, they also budget about $30 million annually to support journalism, local journalism in New York.
We don't have such an arrangement in Nigeria. Is this so?
So part of the things I think we can try is to have such an arrangement in Nigeria. For instance, according to Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's telecom infrastructure generated about 7.97 billion in the first quarter of 2026 alone. So if we can have a law that says 1% of that should go into journalism, call it Journalism Sustainability Fund or whatever, and then have like a committee of academics, journalists, and veterans who would administer such fund in such a way that the government is not even involved at all. That could be one of the models that we can explore in Nigeria. And not just, we can't run journalism as a business. That's just the truth. And the people we serve, the audience, they can't pay for the kind of journalism that we need in the country. How can you tell a market seller to pay for a journalism that is behind paywall? It's untrue.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ike Chukwu, I beg your pardon. Now that we've agreed that journalism is a risky job, would you say that journalism is a job that AI cannot take?
Ooh, she went there with AI.
Yes, I do not think AI can take on that job because AI, as I say, is generative. It's based on what you put into it, really. And to cover the news, which is constantly happening. Okay, it's constantly happening. And also to capture the nuances. We cannot depend on AI. So we all know that, AI, you need to look closely at what you get from AI because at least as it is today, it may improve, but as it is today, you still find errors. So it's not something we can say, let AI carry on and tell us the news. And then who determines what is news? Who determines what is of interest to this group or to the other group? Okay, so that is something that I don't think we can leave solely to AI to carry out. But just to add, I would like to add something to what Kemi said, which is that in order to put such a structure in place where government funds there has to be, in this country, trust on the part of government. Government tends to see journalists as antagonists. And this is why many times they face so much threats because the role they play is not recognized for its importance largely on the part of the government. And that, I think, is one of the structural changes that need to take place.
Thank you very much, Dr. Obiaya Francis, and of course, Kemi Busari for joining us. This was a very interesting conversation, and especially that last bit about AI. Nice one. That last bit about AI was very interesting to hear. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We look forward to having another conversation, and hopefully this doesn't die here, but instead we continue to see a Nigeria where journalists are actually valued. And of course, they can also feel it in their pockets. Like,
yes.
I mean,
yes, that pockets one, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much, gentlemen, for joining.
You're welcome. Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's go on a short break, and hopefully the last part, you know, all the newsroom and news company hear us. The pocket is needed. Let's go on a short break.
Our trust is one of the most valuable assets any government possesses. Once damaged, well, it can take years to rebuild. Now, that reality is at the center of renewed debate surrounding allegations involving a government-linked agency and questions over oversight, accountability, and transparency. The controversy, well, it has generated widespread public interest, not only because of the individuals involved, but because it raises broader concerns about institutional checks and balances. How does a questionable entity emerge? Who is responsible for verifying legitimacy, and what safeguards exist to prevent similar situations in the future? Well, beyond the headlines, this is ultimately a conversation about governance and public confidence. So joining us, we have with us here legal practitioner, of course, Towo Oserujabo, who's joining us from the UK. Towo, thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you here on the show this morning. Oseruwaje, I beg your pardon.
It's okay.
Yes. We're also going to have Liberos Oshoma join us. We're hoping that he will join us soon.
Yes, Towo, thank you for joining us again on another Saturday. And I'm sure you've seen and heard and read about this story. So hearing this story, what was the most concerning thing for you? That this guy just had access to all the places that journalists don't have access to get questions. What's your take, Towo?
What I think is a total breakdown of law, basically, and accountability. So you can also look at it from the perspective of what we are facing now. If we can have this kind of issues and we are taking it lightly, just imagine if we look at, if we link it to the insecurity in Nigeria. So you can marry both of them together to see that people who are entrusted with responsibility, people who believe that they know what they are doing, they actually take us for granted and decide to go on their own way in saying that the coffers are made. Nigerians are put in a situation where even they can't express or know what is going on in the country. And if we look at it in a broader perspective, you will see that if it were to be in England or UK, where I am now, where I'm speaking from, I believe the Speaker of the National House of Assembly, of the House of Reps would have resigned. In short, all the officials of the House of Reps would have resigned. The Senate President and the Deputy Senate President would have resigned. As a matter of fact, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation would have resigned. And the Chief of Staff, whose name is mentioned, would have resigned. The officers, the public officers, we know that he got to meet with each example, the EFCC chairman and all those people mentioned in this scandal. For one reason or the other, having interface with this man would have resigned. And if you look at it now, in the UK, the Prime Minister have resigned and is paving way because of scandals, because of policies, promises as to policies is intend to achieve when elected as the Prime Minister of UK. He didn't meet some of them, and some of them he did very well, but he has resigned. But in Nigeria, we just take it for granted. We'll discuss it for a week, and all of a sudden, it will go down the drain.
So I needed to know, first of all, when we think about governance, we think about structure. We think about a place where everything is put in its own place and where this works into that, works into that. It's a system. But when you have a situation like this come up where people don't even know who is the one appointing certain offices or if an office truly exists or not, I'm wondering what that should tell us about the institution, the government institution itself. What does it say about these institutions and the confidence or public trust in these institutions?
If we look at the structure, if we look at institution, first, you understand that the president does not have the power to establish a council, a commission, or a parastatal or an agency, just as this one is portrayed. That is simple. The president does not have that power. That power lies on the National Assembly by virtue of Section 4, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That power lies. That's why you see I mentioned people that ought to be affected as a result of this scandal. And that's why you see I was mentioning them. So by virtue of Section 4, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, establishing any agency, parastatals or commission or council as this is portrayed lies on the National Assembly. So we should know that as a matter of fact. Then for such a commission to have find their way into, or such a council to have find their way into the budget, you now look at Section 80, Section 80 to Section 84 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that clearly stated how and agencies of government or a parastatals of government will be able to access public funds. So there are processes to this. Then we as a legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, we ask certain questions that need to be answered. And that question is, yes, we are aware that the general rule, the president cannot create an agency, but there are exceptions. There is no exception. The only thing is that the president can create advisory committee, just like I think 2 weeks ago or last week, they created the Ebola intervention committee. That one does not need the National Assembly approval. But those kind of committees are drawn from people from various parastatals, individuals in the society to carry out a specific task for a particular purpose within a period of time. And that committee is being empowered by virtue of a gazette. And they don't have power to access public funds through the budget. That is why we have the Ministry of Special Duties, if such ministry still exists now. And that is why we have special provisions in the presidential budget where such committees can access public funds to carry out their tax within the period in which it was created. But all these are not done. But you can see that this guy got access to a structure, federal secretariat for that matter. And for you to get such space, my findings require that you must get an approval from the secretary to the government of the federation.
Right.
So who is those people giving that approval? And for you to also understand that is the parastatal in question is captured in the budget. So you now look, in passing that budget, aside on your mandate, we shall stand that this current National Assembly goes and sing. And outside that, do we really scrutinize things that goes on in the affairs of Nigeria?
That's the question. That's the question I asked you in the beginning, because it will look like the average person has lost faith in such an institution that can't even check itself or even know what's happening internally.
So these are issues we should look at, and you could say this is someone who have access to diplomats. We're talking about ambassadors of several countries. And those kind of invitation would have gone through clearance. Right. The DSS today, I don't know what they are doing. Maybe they just go to court, bundle people from the courtroom or mark themselves.
Before we divert, because now we're going into all the loopholes. See, there's so many things that's happened. Now we're being joined by Liberous Oshoma, who's also a public affairs analyst. Mr. Oshoma, thank you for joining us. Let's just dive right into it. He's also a legal practitioner. Now, looking at this fake agency scandal, accountability, everything, this agency allegedly has a CBN account, had a budget, had 300 staff, and, there was a weakness that now died. What's your take on this situation, and what do you think will there be consequences for the people involved, all the names that have been mentioned, and where is Nigeria heading?
I think the public or the press is also aiding government by tagging these allegations and fraudulent agency. I do not think that this agency, for all intent and purpose, was fraudulent. It wasn't. It was created by government. Those people in government, they created it, even though they are denying now and they have hurriedly charged demand. They created it all the trappings and all the indices, including the paraphernalia of office, are all, extended to this agency, like we already know. Including, you just talk about, invitation to foreign nationals, ambassadors, and the rest. Go check. You will find out also that the Accountant General of the Federation deployed accountants to that office. The ministry, the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Rep extended invitation to this agency for trainings. So it is not, do you extend invitation, or do you deploy your workers to an agency that is fraudulent, apart from giving office to this organization at the National Federal Secretariat? So when we say we are kowtowing the argument of government that it's a fraudulent agency, that it is fake, we just make it look like this guy from nowhere just came in and created an office. As we speak, there are also allegations and attempts to create the narrative that this man is a fraudulent person. He had jumped bail. He was arrested. It also goes to show that if you say that this man was fraudulent, does that mean that somebody who is a member of Boko Haram tomorrow can find its way into government, create an office at the secretariat, federal secretariat, or sits down with the Federal Executive Council, organize a seminar that will involve the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, pay courtesy call on presidents, on EFCC, on government officials, on Bureau of Public Procurement, and all of that. So what I see happening here is what has been happening in government. What do you see? You remember, if you tackle me, I double you. If you double me, I tackle you. That's what is playing out here. The GS tackle and double allegation. And also, what's his name? Alahaji, what's his name again? And the ICOMOS allegation of $500,000 bribe in 1989 to 1990. That's what is playing out here. Sharing formula is at the core of this issue. There is no attempt that the office of the Chief of Staff to the President will make to clean this out. No matter how well intended the laundryman is, he cannot launder this away. Because you see the fingerprints of not just the office of the Chief of Staff, the office of the entire government is apparent in this. So, like I want to also, like my colleague has said, agree that everybody right from the office of the DSS, office of the budget, Minister for Budget and Planning, the office of the Chief of Staff, the CBN office also, should be answering questions instead of just hurriedly charging this man for whatever, impersonation. He's not impersonating. They know they cannot sustain that charge of impersonation. Secondly, if you notice, there was a letter. There was a letter written on October 2025 from the office of the SGF to the NIPC DG, alleging that this office is fraudulent and that the office is fraudulent. From that 2025, if you know that there's an office existing and carrying out the function of an NIPC established by law, why do you now need to just say it is fraudulent? Did you deploy DSS to that office? Did you deploy the police? The man was arrested, 7 days later released. Subsequently arrested, 11 days later he was released. So that means after all the preliminary investigation, they discovered that if they go further beyond that, certainly they are going to spill the beans. So all of these attempts are charging him. Even Bayo Onanuga that issued that press statement on behalf of the government does not believe the press release that he issued. I can say that with all sense of responsibility. He does not believe in one word in that press statement. He had to do it because it is the duty of government to just put out something.
Mr. Liberos, I hear you. You say that in the course of investigation, whether it is found out knowingly or unknowingly, that individuals that were annexed to this agency, whether fraudulent or not, even if they were found out to have perhaps failed in their oversight duties, they should be brought to book. It shouldn't just stop at the one individual at the center.
No,
of the
they didn't fail. They didn't fail in their oversight duty. They didn't fail. What happened is an agency was surreptitiously created from the office of the chief of staff. And the moment that agency had the imprimatur of the office of the chief of staff, certainly they are going to extend courtesy to that office. That is what you're saying. So why I'm saying there should be investigation extended to them, they will tell the police the truth.
So liberals,
look at the documents asking us to recognize them. You can't just walk into CBN and open an account. Documents be given to you. So it is not failure.
So Mr. Ostroma, now this is the harder yet shorter question. Is it going to happen?
It's going to happen if Nigerians and the press, just like we are doing, in compliance with Section 22 of the Constitution, ask for it to happen. People in government are not bigger than us. We put them there. Election is around the corner. They say raise your voice and the government will listen. If we insist that it must happen, it will happen. The fact that we say it will not happen, it will not happen. And then they say, well, Nigerians can't keep this on the top burner for so long. And that is why they believe they can do anything and go scot-free. If we insist that it will happen, it will happen. And just like the line item you are showing on the budget now, people have been asking, the budget preparation is an entirely different game altogether. The agency will prepare a budget and submit it to the office of the Minister for Planning, Budget and Planning. The Minister for Budget and Planning will put that budget together and submit it to the presidency, and it will go through fake approval. If this agency was not in existence, was not surreptitiously created, certainly all of these people can all not be blind. But what I am telling you, somebody created it from the office of the presidency. Not until recently did you know that people, the book written by, what's this a man's name again, on Buhari from soldier to statesman. Look at the scandal of how people will use the presidency's list, stamp and signature. They'll give the president document to sign. He will sign and the counterfold is blank. They will type on it with the president's signature. In fact, stories are planted in newspapers for him to read. We see all of these things. So now coming to say, no, the man impersonated. And so they probably were not aware. They acted on the basis of a letter from the office of the chief of staff of the president. And so that letter on itself carries weight. The moment a letter comes from that office, you don't need further investigation. They know the signature of the chief of staff. They know the letter. And so once it carries that content, certainly they will accord him that recognition. So that is what has happened. So if you call all the members of these agencies, they will tell you that the way the man was able to open an account with CBN is that a letter came from presidency recognizing this agency. They will tell you a letter came from the presidency to the National Assembly creating this agency. A letter came from the presidency to the secretariat requesting for office for this agency. By the time all of these are in the public domain, then the office of the chief of staff will no longer have anywhere to hide. Okay. But they will not do it as of right. We'll have to call for it. That is why consistently I have, and other Nigerians have been saying, the chief of staff to the president need to step aside so that a committee also set up, just like Batinaji's case, a 32-member committee, I keep saying Batinaji, Chimanaji. So a 32 members committee was set up to investigate the allegation of forgery against him, and he came up with a damning report. But meanwhile, the man was denying initially. He was denying, and he said he resigned to clear his name. So in this same vein, let Gbajabiamila resign to clear his name so that a committee can be set up to look into this issue. And I can tell you, Mazino, the moment that committee is set up, all of this scandals will open. Everything that is already in the public domain, you will see them.
Thank you, Mr. Oshoma.
Based on all Mr. Oshoma said, of course, we're talking about accountability for Nigerians to speak up. We've seen situations where, you know, the INEC situation with Jamaica Ike, we're still waiting for response. Conversation of deregistration and re-registration, we're still waiting for response. There's always a loophole somewhere. Nigerians have protested before, it did not end well. What do you think Nigerians should do now? If it turns out that they say, you know, the presidency's signatures were, you know, stolen or something, should we say the way we don't have borders in our state is the same way the presidency does not have borders to offices, people can just walk through? How do we move from here? What are we going to say is accountability when this story ends and we don't get the full detail? Towo.
Well, let me clear one thing. Let me make one thing clear. If we're unable to identify the issues, obviously the accountability, the end result will not be the determining purpose of Nigeria. When my learned colleague was saying, what he was saying, I picked some issues that need to be looked into. First of all, what is the office of the what is the office of the chief of staff to the president? Is he an executive office? Is he an office entrusted with the power to create agencies, to sign or issue documents to be honored by ministries and parastatals? Those are issues we need to look at. And if you look at Bayo Anenuga's statement, come again?
No, go ahead.
If you look at Bayo Anenuga's statement, he never denied the fact that he didn't state the role of the chief of staff to the president. And for me, and for what I've seen here in the UK and what I've seen in other clients, I discovered that the office of the chief of staff is like a personal office directly to the president, which has to do with his routine or activities. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with the overall running of the governance. I think just like what he stated, when we ask the right question, just like we said, okay, he should step aside one, then two, we should also look at what is the office of the secretary to the government of the federation is doing. What is actually the role of the office of the secretary to the government is doing? Is he having direct access to the president? How do they communicate? How does he communicate to the president? How are issues handled between the office, which is the chief administrator of the federation, and the presidency? Then looking at it further is to also ask a very vital question: is that we've identified this issue and other agencies or parastatals that Nigerians are not aware of that is in operation. You understand? If we answer this question, then we'll not go back to who and who needs to be called to.
There are many.
Who and who. And I've mentioned it severally. If it is in the UK, where I am now, I'll tell you the government of the federation is going. Would have gone, as a matter of fact. The chief of staff would have gone. As if Bayo Anenuga, the chief press secretary to the president, would have gone. The speaker of the House of Reps would have gone, because for this thing to have gone through the 2016 budget, and it has came through the 2016 budget, and people sat, they were even the accountant general, the CBN governor, several people would have gone in this regard. And as a matter of fact, let's make it clear, Prince Matthew is not a victim. So let's make that thing clear. So if we discuss this issue as seeing him as a victim, he is a conspirator. As a matter of fact, he is an instrument through which public funds are should I use the word, laundered away. And for him to have given out a huge sum of, is it 400 million, 600 million naira for him to get an appointment? Just imagine what he's going there to do or what he's going there to achieve. So if we can address this issue in that way, and we know, as a matter of fact, now just like what he stated earlier, that there's already a sinister motive. You could see the Inspector General of Police did not say anything. EFCC has never issued a statement. National Assembly have never issued a statement. DSS, you could see them, they've never issued a statement regarding to this issue. Document can be for somebody to have come out to say, I have a document to prove the presidency gave me this power, this authority. Are we not sure that those said those said letter that was issued to the police, to DSS for investigation can be backdated? Are we not sure? Then why is it taking much time for even the police to have come out to say, well, we have a case file and this has been ongoing, the office has been sealed, this has been this has been that. Not everything is just silent, just to see how they can manage the situation. But the best thing we need to do is to say, okay, if the National Assembly is in recess, let's see when they come back. Then too, Nigeria should keep pushing this narrative. Somebody must be held accountable. At least if the president will not practice a system where the president can resign honorably, I believe some of his subordinates should, as a matter of fact, not only resign, but be prosecuted in the court of law, because we have when we talk about the cabal, is a clear definition of when they say there is cabal in the presidency. This is a clear definition of the cabal, the attitude and the way the cabal operates.
So, Mr. Oshoma, I want to say thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining to have this conversation. Hang on a second. I'm being told that we still have you on, but we're going to go on a short break because there's much more that needs to be covered on this story. So I'm going to save you until after this short break. Stay with us. We'll be back. And welcome back. We still have our guests here with us, Mr. To Oseruja, and of course, Mr. Liberos Oshoma, who have been discussing with us the instance of a fake agency scandal within the Nigerian government. Mr. Liberos, let me ask you my final question this morning here. Depending on how this, regardless of how this comes out in court, I'm wondering what reforms should actually come out of this controversy so that it's not possible for one individual or group of people to actually present a fictitious agency and get away with it. So what reforms should there be?
For us to talk about the reforms that will come out from it, we need to also understand, like I explained earlier, the Office of the Chief of Staff does not create agencies. The Office of the Chief of Staff is like the Chief Security Officer, for example, in terms of security. But in this case, the head of administration of the Office of the President, that's the presidency. He manages the administration of the president's office. He clears, it's like a clearing house for the president. He determines which letter he will see and which one he will not see. And then he determines the issues he will attend to and the ones that he will not attend to. And then he brings out letters from the president's office. So what they do is that in these instances, they have discussions, they know what they want to do. They pass documents to the president in some cases. And sometimes the president appends his signature. And then, like we saw in Buhari's tenure, and in some cases, the counterfoils of these documents would carry blank papers with just signature. And so they use that signature to create whatever they want to create. So anybody that sees the document from the president's office will no longer be going back to the president to ask him, sir, did you sign this letter? Because it is coming from the Office of the Chief of Staff attached with a letter that's pursuant to the president's, to the powers donated to the president in this, and this. The president has deemed it fit to create so-and-so agency. Please accord them the necessary recognition in terms of, budgeting, in terms of office space and the rest. It is that letter that I am referring to that the Chief of Staff cannot just deny knowledge of. Because if they are saying the man forged the president's letter, as at what time did you realize that he forged that letter? So to answer your question directly now, the reforms that should come out from this is that a president should appoint a Chief of Staff who knows what he's doing. Secondly, there should be a clearinghouse, apart from the president's head of administration. There should be a clearinghouse in the event that there are documents that are circumvented coming from the president. There should be a way, even with a click of the button, to authenticate. Even like you see, NAFDAC will say there is a barcode in this document. Once you scan the barcode, it cannot be forged. It means that this is authenticated. So that way you can authenticate letters emanating from the office of the president so that you won't next time turn around to say it was forged. Because now they are claiming forgery, that the man forged this letter and that he forged the letter he's been going around. So how do we authenticate the signature of Mr. President on this document? How do we authenticate the document? Is there a barcode for authenticating that document also? We need to create all of this. Technology has gone beyond this, where, what do you call it, you just send mail, letters. There should be official channel of communication also, email. That is why I am insisting that the police should collect the funds of these people who are involved. If you run a forensic investigation, if the police wants to do a detailed work, if you run a forensic investigation on this, you will discover that all of these people are culpable. And then lastly, reforms. The office of the Inspector General should be insulated from the appendage of the presidency. The office of the Attorney General of the Federation, not the Minister for Justice staff, the Attorney General of the Federation also should be created. It should be a separate office from the office of the Minister for Justice. Because as we speak, these people who are in government today, the Tunubus of this world, when they were in opposition, these were some of their reforms that they proposed. That office of the Attorney General should be separated from the Minister for Justice. And then the office of the Inspector General of Police should be insulated from the whims and caprices of Mr. President. These two offices, they carry serious and heavy powers that they can immediately initiate investigation into such allegations without manipulation. And if, for example, the Minister of Justice, he sits at the Federal Executive meeting and is also the Attorney General, how do you think he will prosecute somebody who is in government? But if these offices are insulated, then certainly it will be easy for them to initiate a detailed investigation and prosecution without having to recourse to the presidency.
Mr. Oshoma, sorry, you needed a break there. That was plenty to say.
Thank you.
So we actually did want to ask you a final question, but unfortunately, Mr. Oshoma has also taken your time because...
sorry, my apologies.
It's okay. We enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us to have this. We'll continue to monitor the situation and see where this story goes, to see whether Nigerians will actually ask for accountability like you have suggested. But one thing I learned is when you turn the perspective and look at this as an institution that might be legal, it changes perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you so much for joining.
Now, let's take a break. Let's get ready for our next conversation here on Breakfast Extra with Mazzino and Queen. We'll be back.
Now, as political parties begin positioning themselves ahead of the 2027 general elections, internal stability is becoming just as important as public appeal. For opposition parties hoping to expand their influence, leadership disputes can undermine credibility long before campaign season begins. This is why the recent court ruling affirming the leadership of the African Democratic Congress, led by former Senate President David Mark, is attracting attention. Supporters see it as a legal validation of the party's current direction, while political observers view it as a potentially significant development in the evolving landscape of opposition politics. At a time when many Nigerians are calling for stronger political alternatives, questions remain about whether internal cohesion can be translated into electoral relevance.
In essence, the ruling may have settled one legal dispute, but it also opens a wider conversation about party-building opposition strategy and preparations for 2027. So, joining us now is Precious Ehi-Edo, the FCT Deputy Secretary of the African Democratic Congress. Thank you very much for joining us. We're also hoping to be joined by Alex Ter-Adam, legal practitioner, former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. But thank you very much, Ehi, for joining us currently. Ehi, first off, I wanted to know what this ruling means internally for the ADC.
Well, it gives clarity for us because now the leadership is now more clear for us. So to those who have been wondering who is the leader, this, that, it gives that clarity for us now that this is who we are following. So internally, it has been affirmed what has already been there, that the leadership of Senator David Mark is the leader of the party. So that has been put to rest, and it gives that unity that we're looking for. So yeah.
Well, you say it as if even internally that this was a big deal, and the individuals who were inside of the ADC were unsure who the party leader was. So did this need to come from a court?
Well, it wasn't a big deal for us, but both externally and some certain people at the grassroots level needed this clarity. But for us, internally, it wasn't an issue at all, because we know that the transition of power was duly and legally transitioned. So it wasn't an issue for us internally, but grassroots level, that clarity needed to be set for unity. So yeah.
Right. So, Precious, for the viewers who are watching and a bit concerned as to, ADC and all the likes of all the oppositions that we have apart from, the APC, how would you explain this internal crisis? Would you say that it is finally over and you guys are ready for the 2027 election, or we should wait and see because something else might come up?
Well, as for now, except because, there's right to appeal, but as for now, I want to believe we are the strong opposition and we are very ready for 2027 election. So except maybe in the future they decide to appeal, which I believe will be another waste of the time of the courts, we are ready for 2027 election. Internally, we're very ready.
Right. So what would you say the ADC strategy is now to gain momentum and to, tell Nigerians to join the ADC? What would you say your strategy would be to connect yourself with Nigerians?
Okay, thank you for that question. One of the things, or so many of one of the things that ADC is focused on is policy building. So I want Nigerians to judge us based on the ideas we're bringing, the policies we're also bringing forward. Another thing is grassroots mobilization. Another thing is youth, women inclusion, and also the conversation we'll be having on concerning national issues. So with all of this, I want Nigerians to listen to what we are saying. That's the policies we are bringing, the ideas we are bringing, and be the judge of it, and see that ADC is one party you should align with come 2027.
Okay. I think another concern here is how can, how do I put it? So for viewers who are watching and, understanding that, okay, the court ruling has been done now, would you say that, Mazino, help me, because
okay.
everything just left my brain.
I had a question for her. Now you have court rulings and then you have public trust. And I'm wondering, because you said this yourself now, that this definition needed to be made, especially for the grassroots, and that's public trust. So I'm wondering how you're going to convert, how the ADC intends to convert this ruling into public trust. What strategy or mechanism do you have to make the grassroots, like you've just mentioned, be fully aware of this court ruling or this leadership situation at the ADC so that they have public interest in the party?
So one of the key things we'll be doing is grassroots engagements. Mm-hmm. So not just sitting in the office or sitting in one place and just saying so many things, but no, we'll be going down to the grassroots level to have an engagement, to listen to them. What's your issues? How can we come in and also be selling our policies to these persons, to these people, to these communities, to Nigeria at large? So I think one of the strategies we have is grassroots engagements. Mm-hmm. Going down to the grassroots level, yes, grassroots engagement.
Right. We're also joined by a legal practitioner who's also the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Xtra Adum. Mr. Adum, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adum. Mr. Adum, I wanted to ask you something about internal democracy when it comes to Nigerian politics, especially when it comes to opposition politics. The ADC has been hit with so many things lately, and I'm wondering how relevant it is for a party to have absolute democracy inside of its system, for it to be appealing to the public trust, like I was just asking Ehi from before. How important is it?
Yeah, internal democracy is bedrock of the sustainability for any political party. For the ADC, you will appreciate and, of course, give us our flowers because we are one political party which has conducted primaries in this particular electoral season, that is not dodged with so much complaint about suppression of rights or disenfranchisement or corruption or fraud in the process. Our presidential primaries, for instance, was very transparently done. Both the voting and the collation were done in public and very transparent. And the 3 presidential candidates who participated in our primaries, both Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who was the eventual winner, Chief Rotimi Amici, His Excellency Rotimi Amici, who was the runner-up, and Alhaji Hayatuddin, have all affirmed the fact that Atiku won the presidential primaries. And it's interesting to note that Rotimi Amici, who came second in the presidential primaries, has also accepted to work with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar as his running mate. And that runs through all the other categories of primary elections that were conducted within the party at the gubernatorial, senatorial, House of Reps, and House of Assembly levels. So internet democracy in the ADC is sacrosanct, and we have upheld that principle, and we believe that a party that cannot provide internet democracy like the APC, where you find that today, up to this moment, issues of candidates have not been settled, and there are loggerheads even with INEC, which has insisted that some of the primaries they monitor, the results that are coming in from the APC don't indicate or don't reconcile with what INEC monitored. So I think ADC deserves its flowers for upholding the principle of internet democracy.
Okay.
And if you cannot give yourself internet democracy, you probably can't even give the nation democracy, because you can't give what you don't have. So I think ADC deserves its flowers.
Mr. Adam, now I hear you when you say that internet democracy is sacrosanct, especially inside of the ADC, but one of the statements that came out of the ruling was that the party did not exhaust to completion its internal mechanism for settling disputes. And I'm wondering, for a party to come out and say that it's an opposition, how much can people trust that party when they have these kinds of disputes that end up in court? So you see where I'm going with my initial questioning.
Yeah, with the greatest respect, I think that you are misinterpreting the judgment of the court. The judgment of Justice Liban of the Federal High Court laid out 5 basic legal principles. If you want us to interrogate, I will tell you.
Please, go ahead.
The first principle was that the litigants, because the judgment was against the litigants, not against the party, you must appreciate that. The litigant was Leke Abejide, who was a member of the ADC until he ported to the APC recently. And the first principle was that the dispute for which he came to court was a dispute that was classified or has been classified by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electoral Act as a dispute concerning the internal affairs of a political party. And that internal affairs of a political party proscribes the jurisdiction of the court. Under Section 83, subsection 5, it says that no court, that's of the Electoral Act, it says no court in Nigeria has the powers to interfere in the internal affairs of a political party. Another subsection 6 of the same Section 85 of the Electoral Act, it imposes, a fine of 10 million naira for the litigant and 5 million naira for the legal counsel who accepts a brief of that nature to go to court. And that's why those fines were actually imposed on the litigants. And then another section, further Section 84, further of the Electoral Act, and then Section 251 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and Section 285, subsection 14, all prescribe the jurisdiction of the High Court from interfering in the internal affairs of a political party. The second principle was that the litigant, Leke Abejide, lacked the local standard, to have proceeded to court, because having not established any injury to his constitutional and legal rights because of the emergence of the David Mark-led NWC, he had no basis, no local standing, no capacity or competence to come before the Federal High Court, to seek to ask the Federal High Court to nullify the emergence of David Mark. And then the third issue was that he failed, and that's where your question, this is the central point of your question, that he, Leke Abejide, failed to exhaust the internal mechanisms for dispute resolution within the ADC, because the Constitution of the ADC provides for mechanisms for the resolution of dispute among members. And having failed to exhaust that, which is a precondition before you can proceed to court, he has no basis at all to have proceeded to court. So the judgment was against Leke Abejide for not exhausting the internal mechanisms for dispute resolution within the ADC before proceeding to court. It was not against the ADC for proceeding to court because the ADC did not proceed to court. It was the litigants, the Leke Abejide, the plaintiff, who was a member of the party, who failed to exhaust the internal dispute resolution mechanisms of the party, who proceeded to court, that the judgment was against. Then, of course, the fourth issue which the court dealt with was that the NWC led by David Mark emerged through a legal process that complied with all the provisions of the constitution of the ADC. And as such, they were in no breach of any part of the constitution of the ADC, the Electoral Act, or the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So there was no basis for anybody to have taken them to court. And then lastly, that if you take it on the provisions of the law, the emergence of David Mark, did not even emerge because Leke Abejide alleged that David Mark's NWC was put in place on the 2nd of July. So it was in breach of the requirements of the Electoral Act that requires that any political party that is holding a meeting for the election of executives of the party must give INEC 21 days notice as provided under Section 82, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act. Now, the court held that the next meeting did not hold on the 2nd of July, because what held on the 2nd of July, when David Mark was unveiled at the Yaradua Center, was basically a stakeholders meeting. And that stakeholders meeting gave notice to INEC that the next meeting, NWC meeting of the ADC will be holding on the 29th. So it was that 29th meeting of July 2025 that actually appointed the Senator David Mark and the other members of the NWC. So they were not in breach of the requirements of Section 84 of the Electoral Act. So that is the five principal issues which the court considered and then gave this judgment. So this judgment has completely laid to rest all the legal contentions, both by Nafiu Bala or any other person concerned or interested in the leadership of the ADC, because the court has held that the emergence of David Mark was regular on the record, both in law and in fact. And so the issue of the party not exhausting the internal dispute resolution mechanisms does not arise against the party. It arises against those who are seeking to take or who have taken the party to court with respect to the emergence of Senator David Mark's led NWC. So the judgment is not against ADC. The judgment is against the litigants, which is Leke Abejide and perhaps Nafi Bala Mohammed, or their co-travelers who are in court against the ADC.
Mr. Adam, thank you very much for that very interesting clerical way of stating the matters here. I really enjoyed that little walk through the park. However, let's come to Ahis. Now, if you don't mind, I was wondering, now that this is clear, now that the court ruling is out, and now that we know who exactly leads the ADC, do you think that the ADC has any room? Do you think that there's much room it needs to do or work to be able to convince Nigerians that it is a viable alternative opposition party? It has to attract partner stakeholders and it has to attract other coalition partners. Do you think it still has work to do, Ahi?
Oh, well, just like every other party, I think until Nigeria has been fully convinced, which is after 2027 election, I think we'll continue convincing Nigeria that not only are we the strongest opposition that they should align with, but also that we are going to stand with them, which we have shown in all the legal battles we have gone through, that we are not one to back out. So we are going to defend their vote, and we are also going to protect their vote. We are not just going to tell them to go out there to vote, tell them how to fight, but we are also going to join them in this fight. So in convincing Nigeria, the only thing I'm going to say is, look at all the battles, look at all the stones, look at all the bullet that has been thrown at us. We come out victorious all the time. So it just shows that we are going to stand with them. So one thing I want to make clear is Nigerians should get their PVC, because that's the only way we are going to go 2027 head up high and battle this with the current APC party. So if they do not get their PVC, then no matter what policies we are giving, and no matter what we are selling, or no matter what we are saying, or no matter the amount of convincing we are doing, it will just be in vain, because
just a second, Ahi. I'm trying to. When people say get your PVC, especially when people in political offices say get your PVC, I often wonder whether that is where it all stops. When we take a look at the ADC and the fact that it's had such big names inside of the ADC that were meant to attract the numbers when it comes to election day, I'm wondering where it leaves the ADC currently. Yes, I know the articulates are a big movement and all of that, but then how much work is being done at the grassroots, which you are very concerned about? We always hear about the ADC, the big names, but nobody hears about the common names. And I mean the common names in terms of the people at the grassroots. How much work is being done by this party, which seems to be driven especially by social media and big names itself, when it comes to average, ordinary grassroots people, people in the villages, people in small communities, in towns? They don't know much about the ADC, and I'm wondering how much effort is being put to educate voters or expected voters that you want to go out there and get their PVC. And that, for me, is something that I think not just the ADC, but other opposition parties need to work on, that the APC and perhaps the PDP might have gotten down to a T. I was wondering who's going to respond to this, Mr. Adam, or would it be you, Ehi?
Yeah.
Mr. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. You see, the work for the opposition, I dare say that is already being done by the incumbent political party. The failure of the APC to provide governance resonates more at the grassroots than it even resonates in the cities. The impact of this misgovernance is felt more by the local people. Insecurity afflicts Nigerians more at the grassroots. You know, the cost of living affects Nigerians more at the grassroots. The collapse of trust in government affects Nigerians more at the grassroots. So if you look at the totality of the failure of the APC in the last 11 years, the work for the ADC and all other opposition political parties is cut out, well cut out. For us, as a political party, I can assure you that the ADC has presence in over 8,000 wards of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the 774 local governments of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the 36 states of the Federation, and the FCT. And you can see that even at the National Assembly today, the ADC has become, from the adoption of the ADC by the coalition partners, the party has become the major opposition political parties, having had almost all the opposition, senators and even incumbent senators from the ruling APC, they come to the ADC at the National Assembly, ditto for the House of Reps. And except for the legal hiatus that was introduced by default by the incumbent APC government to slow the momentum of the ADC shortly after all opposition political parties began to coalesce into the ADC, especially when the likes of His Excellency Kwakwanso, shortly after Peter Obi also joined the ADC, Kwakwanso joined the ADC, and we moved to Bauchi, and we're going to move to Ibadan, to get all the other opposition, even incumbent governors to come into the ADC. The government realized that if you allow this to happen, then the APC was already out of government by 2027. So they introduced God's agents to institute these legal actions and then perhaps walk around the judiciary to get some kind of, black market judgments. I'm sorry, with all due respect, black market judgments, especially the order of the Federal High Court, granted by the notorious Justice Peter Lifu, directing that the INEC should be the registrar.
Mr. Adam, I must apologize.
The status quo ante bellum issue, which INEC now utilized to hold back the leadership of the ADC and remove them from the platform. That created some kind of tension.
Mr. Adam, I'm so sorry. I have to interject there because we actually have run out of time. Maybe it was not the best time to ask that final question, but you have laid down plenty of, your response then. I think that we can glean from that where you're going. But thank you very much.
If I can contribute to what...
Ehi, if you can do that in 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, Ehi.
Yeah. So you made a statement that on social media, the APC and PDP has strengthening their grassroots. First of all, I want to tell you that the election will not be conducted on social media. That's one. And two, talking about grassroots engagement, we have been doing that. The fact that it's not on social media doesn't mean we have not. We have been doing engagement from ward level to local government. For example, earlier this week, we are Day. We went to Day, went to Kwali. The engagement has actually been going on, and it doesn't have to be on social media for you to know that we have been doing that, because the election come 2027 will not be done on social media.
All right, then.
But I can tell you for a fact that we are doing that already.
My reference was actually to the fact that social media birthed the movement for ADC, not the other way around. But I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Adum, thank you very much, Ehi, for joining us to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's go to a short break. When we return, we have our last conversation inside of Breakfast Extra Saturday edition. Stay with us.
Welcome back, and it's time for our final conversation. Let's talk xenophobia. Migrations, well, have long been part of human story. People move in search of safety, opportunity, education, and a better life. Yet, across different parts of the world, migrants often find themselves caught between economic anxieties, political tensions, and social resentment. Recent concerns over xenophobic incidents in South Africa have once again drawn international attention. The World Health Organization has condemned acts of xenophobia and called for greater protection of migrants and vulnerable populations. For many Africans, the issue touches on more than security. It raises fundamental questions about human rights, regional cooperation, and the promise of African solidarity.
And in summary, what may appear to be isolated incidents often reflect deeper social and economic pressures, but they also test our commitment to justice and human dignity. And to help us unpack these issues, we're joined by Omlet Nchingila, who is a Right to Protest project coordinator. And we also have Mr. Alex Oturu, who's the National Commissioner for NCFRMI from the Southwest Zonal. Did I get that right?
Southwest Zonal Coordinator for the National Commission for Refugees.
I missed it.
And internally displaced persons.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a mouthful.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Oturu, for joining us. And Omle, thank you for joining us. Omle, can you just give us your view on this situation with xenophobia? A lot of people will say Nigerians and South Africans were all brothers, we're all from Africa. We should not be fighting. What would you say this issue of xenophobia started from, and why is it escalating so much in 2026?
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and good morning to everyone. I think from my own analysis of just the past few months in South Africa is around two things. There have been conditions that have been created for such sentiments around xenophobia to be created amongst our societies and our people. And these are conditions of not only just poor governance, but a government who's really neglected the needs of its own citizens on the ground, and therefore has decided to use this opportunity as a political ploy to scapegoat, taking accountability and responsibility for the lack of governance that we've seen in our communities, a lack of service delivery, a stagnant economy as well, really just the suffering of people throughout the country, be it women, be it youth, be it communities in rural areas. So really what we see here are not only just victims of a South African government, but victims also of the neighboring governments who have failed to actually take, steps to improve some of their own economies and the conditions and the livelihoods of their own citizens who migrate to seek better opportunities elsewhere. So we really are seeing not only just a breakdown of governance in South Africa, but also a regional and a lack of responsibility from the SADC community, I would say at large.
Right.
I'd like to come in the studio here and ask Alex. So we saw the marches, we saw the instances, we saw the dead bodies, we saw the beatings and all. We, however, didn't hear much of the South African government's response. Yes, they did try. They did say that immigration is not something for vigilantes, that they have documented ways or means that they should go through with. But do you think that their response was adequate?
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I'll be able to speak on behalf of the government of South Africa, but I think...
Now, from your own point of view as an...
Yes, I'm a government worker, so I have to be very neutral, diplomatic and neutral in my response. Yeah, so I think obviously a lot more could be said. It's important for people to know that migration is a right. It's a human right. Everybody has a right to migrate from one country to the other to seek, expression wherever they are. It's important that governments understand this. I know that in recent times, migration has become a lot more political, and so it's very difficult for people to balance the nuances. But what is really important is that migrants are human beings. That's the first thing that we need to take away from it. They are you and I. They are not them. We always have this perception of looking at migrants, refugees, as people who are them, they and us. But we need to understand that we are them. They are us, they are part of us, they are our brothers and they are our sisters. And so it's important for governments to always seek, as much as possible to protect the rights of all migrants, people that are living in your country. They have the right to be protected. And that's one of the things that I would say that Nigeria is doing really well. Under the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, we have over 100,000 refugees that are living in Nigeria. We do not keep them in camps. We allow them to, have their lives. We allow them to get jobs, to open bank accounts, and they are working, living freely, amongst us and actually contributing to the society, contributing to the economy. They are taxpayers. I always tell people, even the clothes that I'm wearing now was made by a refugee from DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. So they are people, they are human beings like you and I. They are not, people to be pushed away. They are not people to be ostracized. So I think as governments across board, it's important that we respect the rights of migrants and we work as much as possible to protect them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. May I ask Omle another question? Omle, back to you now. And this was a very intense xenophobia we saw this past few weeks there in South Africa. And I'm wondering what cultural factors might be responsible, or maybe there must be something that's responsible for the situation currently, because it seemed to have much more fire under it. And I'm wondering what you think might be responsible for this. Is it a cultural thing? Is it an economic factor? What's that factor?
I would say it's a combination of quite a lot of things that are happening within the South African context. First, I would say it's election year this year. We are heading into our local elections in November, and these in South Africa are quite highly contested across the board. And I do think that there are many politicians who have tried to use, grievances and sentiments that are genuine coming from South Africans to use them to, not only gather a political vote, but, try to get some sort of public trust, as the current administration is losing quite a lot of support from citizens across the board. And I would say that there are cultural factors that also feature into, the flourishing of xenophobic sentiments. So busting the myths about migrants, about who they are, what they represent in our countries has been really important for us as civil society organizations to, I guess like my colleague has said, to really bust this myth of othering other people, of treating them differently, but of also fearing, difference and fearing people from other countries. And this has been something many civil society organizations across the board have really been focused on, going into communities to educate people, but not only educate people to understand why people have a fear of other people coming into the country. When South Africa has lived with more than 2.4 million migrants for so many years, where does this heightened sense of xenophobia come from? What is fueling it? And to better get the understanding of it, to bring interventions that not only, educate people, but bring social cohesion and stop Africans from blaming each other, and being kept actually from enjoying not only our economies together, but our cultures, our differences as a whole.
Right. So, Mr. Turu, you mentioned that an immigrant made your outfit.
Yeah.
So my first question is, the immigrants that are in the camp, are they documented or they're not documented? That's one. And if the government know that they're not documented, are they allowing them stay because they are adding to the economy?
So, yeah, first of all, I said refugees. And for a person to be a refugee, the person has to be recognized by government. And that's the responsibility of our agency. That's the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons to document all persons of concern, all kinds of migrants that are in Nigeria. So whether they are refugees, whether they are asylum seekers, whether they are returnees, like we have the South African returnees, Nigerians who have been forced to return from South Africa, which our agency is working together with other national agencies as well as international organizations to provide protection for them. And I also mentioned that we do not run camps in Nigeria. We do not have camps for refugees. What we practice is an urban refugee system. And this is that so that immediately they come into Nigeria, immediately they are documented, and immediately they are confirmed as refugees. We empower them to be able to start their lives, to be able to contribute to the society. So we give them the necessary documentation.
Integrate them into
exactly. So it's about integrating them into the society and empowering them to be able to contribute productively to the society, because the nation as a whole will benefit from having a strong migrant population that is contributing to the economy. Across Africa, across the world, migrants have helped to build economies. They've helped to strengthen societal norms. They come with their skills, they come with their talents, they come with, a lot of things that we may not have. There are some technical skills that only certain migrants from certain parts of the world have by way of the kind of education that they have, the kind of cultural systems that they have. It just makes them more capable.
Do you think the South African government owes the returning Nigerians or immigrants anything?
Well,
way of compensation, which is being discussed currently?
Yes, I think one of the things that the Global Compact for Migration supports, that's the UN document that governs how migration is governed across various countries of the world, which South Africa is a signatory to, as well as Nigeria. It supports portability of people's resources. So that means that whatever you have gained while you were in the country in your host country. So for example, if you had a job in South Africa, if you were working, they should, the government of South Africa has the responsibility under the GCM to support them to at least get back all the monies that they've made. Their bank accounts have access to whatever they've had while they were in South Africa.
Well, they haven't really responded to this. And this is, perhaps maybe this might be the conversation next week regarding compensation, Queen. Omle, I don't know if you agree, but we can't continue the conversation here today because we are out of time for Breakfast Central. Breakfast Extra. Breakfast Central is the one during the week, but Breakfast Extra already today. But hopefully we can get you back on so we can have a much more robust conversation on this, Omle. And of course, also with our in-studio guest here. Thank you very much as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I think we'll have to say our goodbyes right now because we have eaten into that time already.
Goodbye, and hopefully there's no flood. See you tomorrow.
Oh, nice one. Goodbye. Hopefully there's no flood. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.